Hey y'all, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are when you see this video. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It's December 10th, 2025. I'm going to be talking about pseudo-Christians, and I'm going to be giving you a refresher course, a refresher on this movement that I consider dangerous, to be honest, of NAR, which is the New Apostolic Reformation, and the Seven Mountains Mandate movements. I did a couple videos on it in the past, but something came up today that I watched, and it jogged my memory about this, as things seem to be moving ahead in a not good direction, continuing on this route. So I'm going to give you an article just to remind everybody what this is, and then I have a video to share with you. The New Face of Christian Zionism. This actually came out March 31st. The other one that I shared was way long ago, 2015 or something. A rapidly growing Christian right movement has become a driving force behind unqualified U.S. and global support for ISI. That's what I call this. Okay? ISI. All right, let's see. As you can see them all here. This photo was out February 8th. Okay? All right. On October 12, 2024, tens of thousands of people thronged outside the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. for what organizers called the A Million Women Rally. The event was staged by a clutch of leaders of the New Apostolic Reformation, NARS, a dynamic and fast-growing Christian right movement that has influenced hundreds of millions of people around the world, including tens of millions in the United States. Timed to coincide with the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur, the themes of the gathering included winning Christian, quote-unquote, dominion over political institutions, which is part of their mission, mobilizing voters, and, in keeping with the movement's focus on the idea of spiritual warfare, which is a warped view of it, exorcising demons from the Capitol. But although what limited media attention the event drew didn't cover it, another major purpose was rallying support for ISI. Rally organizer Lou Engle took the stage, declaring, "You've got to align with the Word of God. If we stand and bless ISI, he may save our nation." Okay, so again, following dispensationalism, which is a false doctrine. And this is why this is so dangerous. You follow false doctrines and real conflicts, real horrible things can happen and have. Guiding the crowd in 10 hours of continuous worship on a stage bedecked with ISI flags, rally leaders exhorted Congress to fulfill its quote-unquote biblical mandate. As one speaker put it, to, quote, provide unequivocal support to ISI in the face of her enemies and our enemies. At one point, the crowd sang the ISI national anthem to rapturous applause. Are you sure these people are Americans? You sure these people are Christians? The far-flung networks of independent Pentecostal and charismatic churches and other institutions that comprise the NAR arguably represent the most significant religious movement in recent U.S. history. The movement was integral to Donald Trump's 3 presidential campaigns dating back to his first run in 2015, and since his first victory, it has worked its way into the upper echelons of political power, with televangelist Paula White-Cain, also a spiritual advisor to Trump, recently installed as head of the new White House Faith Office. Lord help us. The NAR is also at the cutting edge of Christian Zionism, a global movement of primarily evangelical, Pentecostal, and charismatic Christians who believe that the Bible mandates unqualified support for the state of ISI. As global outrage grows against Izzy's eliminationist, expansionist agenda, Trump's second term seems to be shaping up as even more aggressively pro-Izzy than his first. In his first weeks in office, Trump called for the ethnic cleansing of more than 2 million Palestinians from the Gaza Strip and for U.S. occupation of the beleaguered territory, which remains devastated after nearly a year and a half of Izzy bombardment and invasion. Key Trump administration appointees have also pledged support for Izzy's annexation of the West Bank, which, mind you, have a lot of Christians there, no, not a lot, but a good amount, including White-Cain Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Ambassador to Izzy Mike Huckabee, who promised Trump will bring changes of biblical proportions to the Middle East. Izzy leaders, for their part, know where their strongest support lies. During his February visit in Washington, D.C., Izzy Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu didn't meet with any U.S. Jewish leaders, but made his time for a 90-minute gathering with evangelical leaders. At least three of those leaders were key NAR figures, including White-Cain, who reportedly held a separate, lengthy meeting with Netanyahu and conducted an extensive interview with the Prime Minister for Izzy TV. All of this makes clear that as the U.S.-Izzy special relationship, quote-unquote, enters a dangerous new phase, the NAR will play a pivotal role. Okay? The NAR isn't just any religious movement, but in the words of political scientist Paul Juppé, is one that represents a quote-unquote fundamental shift in U.S. Christianity as its political vision has spread beyond the charismatic/Pentecostal camp it was born into, now dominate the far larger category of U.S. evangelicalism. As a cross-denominational movement that evolved from multiple roots over a century, NAR was identified and named in the mid-1990s by the late C. Peter Wagner, a professor at the Evangelical Fuller Theological Seminary, who observed that independent or non-denominational churches were growing the fastest in both the United States and worldwide. In their explosive growth, Wagner saw an emerging paradigm shift that he and his associates eventually sought to shape, organize, and lead. This broad paradigm features networks of NAR churches and ministries that reject many historic Christian doctrines, denominations, and leadership roles while gradually restoring offices of the first century church as outlined in the biblical book of Ephesians. Among those offices are the movement titles of apostle and prophet, such that Lou Engle bears the title of a NAR prophet and Paula White-Cain is an NAR apostle. Before we go any further on this ridiculous and crazy organization, they anytime I hear reformers, it's like, oh, we have to start the church over because it was lost, 1,500 years ago, which is not the case. It has been there since 33 AD, since Christ was walking on the earth. Before, when he left, the apostles, he told them that he showed them how to go forth to make the new Christian faith and the church, and it came out in Pentecost, and went from there and is still continuing today. And I don't mean to be sounding harsh, but this is kind of an irritating subject matter to me, this particular movement, which is, in my opinion, obviously a false Christianity, a pseudo-Christianity, is where did they get the authority to call themselves or make themselves apostles? I mean, I know that sounds horrible, but it's always been a succession of laying hands on the bishops in the church from the beginning. But poof, these people out of the blue decide that they're going to do this. Okay, that's just how I see it. Now I'm going to go back to this article. NAR also embodies a dynamic vision of religious and political control known as the Seven Mountain Mandate. Yes, And you see they're mixing religion and politics, which you're not supposed to do and you shouldn't do when you are having a relationship with God, and that is and he always comes first, and politics is a worldly issue. Just me sharing my thoughts. Okay, so the Seven Mountain Mandate, a metaphorical political blueprint that charges believers with establishing dominion, quote unquote, over the seven mountains of societal power. Okay, so that's the government, religion, family, education, media, arts, entertainment, and business. That's, as I've said before in my other videos. Elements of the movement often, because I did say I wanted to keep an eye on this movement, and that's why every now and then I report on this, because it's concerning to me. Elements of the movement often envision themselves as an end times army, destined to wage, quote unquote, spiritual warfare in the heavens via prayer, but perhaps also through physical warfare against the quote-unquote demonic forces of liberalism, democracy, LGBTQ, and reproductive rights and other enemies. There's no mere rhetorical excess. What makes NAR and its growing political clout particularly concerning is that normal political and religious differences are seen as demonic, the work of supernatural spirits creating problems at all levels, from quotidian daily life issues to international conflicts. Such demons, to the NAR, may control anything from individual people to entire nations, and are seen as the principal opposition to advancing the kingdom of God on earth. For example, Apostle Che-An and Lance Wallnau, among others, claim that former Vice President Kamala Harris is, quote, a type of Jezebel, literally a demonic spirit. NAR's world... Now, I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris, but that is just ridiculous. NAR's worldview is spreading rapidly. According to a 2024 survey by Juppie, whatever his name is, more than 60% of U.S. Christians agree that, quote, there are modern-day apostles and prophets. Okay. That's a very general thing. Okay. About half believe that, quote, there are demonic principalities and powers who control physical territory, and that the church should, quote unquote, organize campaigns of spiritual warfare and prayer to displace high-level demons. And 42% directly embrace NAR's dominionist mandate in agreeing that, quote, God wants Christians to stand atop the seven mountains of society. This world is not we Christians' world. Anyway, that's what this article explains to you about NAR and the Seven Mountain Mandate. Apparently, it came out a long time ago. It actually started, I think, when I was reading that Seventh-day Adventist article in one of my videos. I think they were talking about it in like 2013, 2014, something around there. So it's been brewing and moving forward through the years, and seems to be getting bigger and more of a monstrosity, in my opinion, each year. And so I'm going to share now a video for you, because I think Colonel Wilkerson explains this very well. Okay, this was on Dialogue Works. I'm going to share this with you.
Israel is drafting U.S. pastors to influence the young people in the United States. They're talking about, they started with 8,000 Christian, pastors, and they want to reshape the public opinion in the United States. And here is...
And they know to whom to go. These corrupt Christians who don't know Jesus Christ from my left foot. That's who they go after. They don't go after true Christians. True Christians will have nothing to do with them. They go after the Christian nationalists. They go after the people like John Hagee's group, Christians United for Israel. They go after the Christians who aren't Christians. They're people Like, for example, right now, Tucker Carlson reviles every day. They are not true Christians. And they're perfect allies for the Zionists. One of the most perfect allies is our ambassador there, Huckabee, who meets with Jonathan Pollard and probably has kind words for Jonathan Pollard. A traitor for money.
Here is the report on that, Larry, on the
our moment. The question is whether we will rise to the occasion, and I can tell you from leaving this room a few minutes ago, we're going to rise to the occasion. We will not let this evil win this time.
Israeli leaders encourage the pastors to be bold and express gratitude for their support.
Stand up and be counted. Tell the truth. Speak to young people. Speak up and be counted. I'm counting on you, and I know you'll do what has to be done. That's what our destiny calls for.
This is not just Israel's fight. This is a fight for civilization. We are facing very much a civilizational struggle like we saw in the 30s between Nazism and the free world. Today, that Nazism is Islamism in coordination with communism, which today's expression is called woke, but it's the same thing.
Behind the scenes, Shira Mills of the Friends of Zion Museum helped make the summit possible.
Never been done before. This is something very unique, very difficult, but here we are. From my point of view, it's miraculous.
The vision going forward, recruiting 10,000 more pastors in the next 36 months.
Because there's a lot.
yeah.
This is something I deal with almost every day as an advisory board member of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. You wouldn't believe the things that we get and the things that we have to look at and the complaints we get from thousands of U.S. service members in all the services, including the health services and the merchant marine, about these people's attitudes toward them in the armed forces. These are poisonous people. These are people who carry Jesus on their forehead, but it's not the Jesus of the cross or the Sermon on the Mount. It's the Jesus that they have manufactured from the Old Testament, like Ted Cruz with Tucker Carlson. Jesus to them is a warrior with a flaming sword or an AR-15, and he wishes to kill all the people she just described in the world as being the enemies. Anyone who is not a Zionist, super radical Zionist, or a Christian nationalist deserves to die. They're not going to heaven, and why not get rid of them before Jesus has to come to the earth and get rid of them? That's their attitude. And we have, Nima, far too many of them in this country now.
Yeah.
I think we have the Secretary of Defense. I think he disguises this aspect of his personality rather well while he's Secretary of Defense, but I think he is one of these people. I think if it were his will to do it and his right to do it, he would make Christianity the national religion, and he would have the military assigned the mission of protecting that religion.
You know what they're doing? They're trying to single out Muslims together with socialists. They call it communists, and somehow doing a surgery, within the society, cutting some part of the society. But is that their audience, Larry, is the MAGA movement?
Some of them have departed, thank God. And I think more are going to depart. If you've watched some of those videos of Charlie Kirk, actually, to his credit, entertaining genuine questions from his audience and dealing with those questions, and sometimes being mightily chagrined on occasion about not convincing the individual asking the question that his response was better than his question. I mean, there were people who were telling him that he had no clothes on. There were young people telling him that the association with Israel was poisonous for the United States, and then describing the multiple reasons that was true, one of which was this alliance between zealot Christians and zealot Jews. They're losing. That's the reason they're doing this. And you're going to see a lot more of this, because they are losing for the first time in a long, long time, if not the first time, the youth in this country with regard to their affection for, dedication to, and loyalty to another country other than their own, Israel. They're losing.
Okay. Lots of good stuff he said there. Yeah, so they're going to continue recruiting more of these misled pro-Izzy pastors in those particular sects of supposed Christianity. And as he said, they want to get rid of anybody that doesn't have their exact same view, or they're going to try to coerce them and force them into it. From what I've been reading, oh no, everybody needs to be on the same page as us, which is not going to happen. And the way they're behaving, it definitely is not like following God. As he said, the God they follow is not. It doesn't seem to be the same God that I follow, or he follows, or, the same Christ. I mean, there's some real issues here. And I think when you have false doctrines, you tend to, and he said they're conjuring up their own Christ. You end up coming to a delusional idea of who God is. Now, we all believe we have our view of God is correct. And we do the best we can to, when we have a relationship with him, we know who he is, But this really concerns me, because it seems to be gaining traction a lot more than anybody would want, really, except maybe these people that are doing it. There's a part of me, and I really do think this, that if the Antichrist, God forbid, were to come, in the next handful of years, I really think that these groups, this movement of people would bow to him, and would help to persecute people who are going against him, including us, Orthodox Christians, and any other Christian that is sincere and really is a pious and true Christian. So that was quite kind of disturbing and a frightening event that's going on right now. And of course, we'll see what happens, but yeah, we'll see. But anyway, I hope you all found this informative, and that you got something out of this, and share your thoughts. If you've heard of this group, this movement before, both of them, NAR and 7MM, and how you see this playing out. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel, for all your support.